I just found my wife outside. I'm sitting here, freaking out. It's 3:17 a.m., and I just found my wife outside. This is going to be a mess as I'm still shaking, but let me explain it as best I can. So a bunch of years ago, we lived in another house. One night I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard noises coming from the other half of the house. I quietly opened the bedroom door and immediately saw a light on in my wife's study, which was situated next to the kitchen. The house we lived in was a few blocks away from the bad neighborhood, so my immediate thought was that someone had broken in and was going through the stuff in my wife's room, as my wife had come to bed with me several hours prior, and as far as I knew, she was still in bed. I crept through the house and was ready to confront the person in the room when I realized that it was my wife. In my still half-asleep state, I just assumed she was still in bed. Turns out she had woken up, couldn't get back to sleep, and so went to her room to browse Facebook or whatever for a while. I had almost confronted my own wife, thinking she was a burglar. Now, in our current house, we have a screen door and a wooden door. The wooden door has a deadbolt on it, and you have to make sure that you take the house keys with you, because if you close the wooden door, you're not getting back in unless you grab the hidden spare key or knock on the door window to be let back in. So it's about an hour ago. I'm woken up by the front door rattling. I immediately grab my phone and pull up the security camera located right by the front door. To my surprise, I see my wife standing there, kinda shivering. It's definitely her, because we've been married over a decade and I know what my own wife looks like. She's dressed in the same clothing she wore today, a red top and black pants. 100% her. I don't know what she's doing outside, but she is. Confused, I roll over, and there's my wife, fast asleep. Remembering the incident in our last place, I use my phone screen to shine a light on her and confirm that it's definitely her, and she's definitely in the bed. At this point, I'm really confused. I get up and make my way through the house to the front door. As I walk into the lounge room, our cat looks up at me, half asleep. Normally, she's super curious about stuff going on outside, and I would have thought that hearing the screen door rattling would have caused her to be at the door trying to see what's going on. But it's as if she hasn't heard a thing. I stand by the door and call out, "Who is it?" "It's me. Hurry up and let me back in. I'm freezing. I went outside because I heard something, but forgot to take the keys in my bag with me." That absolutely sounds like my wife. Accent, intonation, knowledge about where her set of keys are. Everything. But I'm not convinced, because I've just seen her sleeping in the bed with my own eyes. "Hold on a second," I tell her. Now I'm heading back through the house and into the bedroom. I wake up my wife and say, "This is really fucking weird, you have to see this." I open the camera app and show her the front door. She's still at the door, looking around, wondering what I'm doing, because all I need to do to let her back in is turn the handle on the deadbolt and open the door. My wife says, "What the fuck? When was that recorded?" I tell her, "It's not. This is live. You're standing outside by the front door. I just went down there and asked who it was, and your voice told me it was you, and that I should let you back in because you're freezing and you left your keys in your bag." My wife gets up and peers through the bedroom window, as you can just see the front door alcove from there. She gasps and pulls the curtains shut. She turns around, and I'll never forget the look on her face as long as I live. She's terrified. "That's me," she says. At this point, I'm freaked the fuck out. I'm wide awake. I'm speaking to my wife, and I'm physically touching her while trying to peer out the window with her. But there she is, standing outside in the very outfit she wore today. Same hair, same glasses, same everything. We walk into the lounge room, and I grab the big torch I have. It's a big, sturdy metal, super bright light, great for blinding people and hitting them if they get too close. We stand by the door again. "What's your name?" I ask. She tells me her full name, including her middle name. It's correct. "What's your birth date?" She tells me. It's also correct. "What did we have for dinner tonight?" She tells me this too, and tells me that I cooked it. This is right, too. I can hear my real wife standing next to me, trying to control her breathing as she's scared out of her wits. I nudge her and whisper, "Ask her something only you would know." After a moment to steady herself and think of something, she speaks. "When we last stayed with my parents, what change had Dad made to my old room?" There was a pause. "Who is that?" the person outside said. "Why aren't you letting me in? You know it's me. You're starting to freak me out here. Who is that inside with you? Is that a recording of me? What's going on here?" I said, "Answer the question. What change had been made to your room when we last visited?" Another pause. Then finally, there was a second bed added, as Max and Damien, my brother-in-law's 2 kids, sleep in there while visiting Mom and Dad. There's an audible gasp from my wife next to me. Now we're both freaked out. I grab her hand and lead her back into the bedroom and turn the lights on. We're still awake, watching the cameras. The other person walked towards the backyard, presumably to grab the spare key, but that was about 40 minutes ago and I haven't seen them since. I'm too shit scared to go to bed, because I'm scared that this person, who knew everything about my wife, will find the spare key and enter. I don't know who the fuck they really are, or what they want, but I'm not sleeping. I left school past 11 at night. I'd stayed late, preparing for my final exams to graduate in engineering. It was easier to study at school than at home, where there were too many distractions. That night, I was so absorbed in my work that I lost track of time. When I finally left, the entire campus was deserted. It was December. The cold was biting, and a thick winter fog covered everything around me. That night, I didn't have enough money for a cab, so I made my way to the bus stop and sat down on the bench, waiting for the last bus, which usually passed around 11:30. As time went by, an uneasy feeling crept over me. I'd never seen the street so empty. Not a single soul was around, only the dense fog that felt as though it was hiding something ominous just beyond my sight. Finally, I spotted the distant headlights of the bus, and relief washed over me, though that strange sense of unease only grew stronger. I climbed aboard, paid my fare, and noticed the driver didn't even glance my way. He was entirely focused, staring down the road, almost as if he were in a trance. The bus was empty, or so I thought. Once I sat down and settled in, I suddenly noticed a young woman seated beside me. I hadn't seen her board, which puzzled me. Her hair fell over her face and she seemed to be shivering. As the bus pulled forward, a faint sobbing sound caught my attention. She was crying softly, and her weeping grew louder by the minute. I felt uncomfortable, but tried to be polite. "Why are you crying?" I asked gently, unsure of what else to say. She didn't look up. Through the veil of her hair, she muttered, My boyfriend cheated on me. I didn't know how to respond. Matters of the heart were not my strength, and I'd be no good at giving advice. I tried to change the subject to distract her. "Where are you headed?" She was silent for a moment before answering. "I'm going home." The fog outside seemed to thicken, covering the windows completely. It was as if the world beyond had disappeared. I looked over at the driver, who was still sitting motionless, expressionless, his gaze lost in the void. Despite the thickening fog, he kept driving as if he knew the way without seeing it. Then I felt a cold touch on my hand. Startled, I looked down. The young woman was gripping my hand, her fingers icy. "I don't want to go alone," she whispered as her hair began to fall back from her face. My heartbeat quickened as I finally saw her eyes. Hollow, dark, lifeless. I recoiled in my seat, but she tightened her grip, her nails digging into my arm. "He left me." "But you won't, right?" she said, her voice dripping with desperation. I struggled to free myself, but she clung to me, her nails breaking my skin and drawing blood. Just then, the bus jerked to a stop, and the lights flickered on. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror and, with a hollow voice, announced, "Last stop." In a final chilling whisper, she leaned close to my ear and murmured, "Welcome home, love. You'll never leave me again." I don't believe in the supernatural. Never have, never will. But everything the last few days has me questioning everything. I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, I haven't left my house. Yet I fear she will get me anyway. Let me start at the beginning. I was driving home from a friend's party 3 days ago. I'd stayed late, and it was already dark out, and then something caught my eye. On the 3rd floor of an old Victorian house, the light was on. In the window, I saw a shape. The shape of a woman hanging upside down. It was as if her feet were somehow tied to the ceiling, and she was hanging upside down in midair. Her arms somehow hung naturally at her sides, defying gravity, but her hair hung straight down from her head, ending in little wispy threads. No detail, just a silhouette. As soon as I recognized it, I was already past the house, so I turned around and drove past it again. This time I only saw some rumpled curtains with tassels and a lamp in the window, which maybe if you squinted real hard could look like a woman hanging upside down. I shook my head and kept driving home. I'd had a lot of pareidolia jump scares like this. Pareidolia is our brain's tendency to see faces and shapes in randomness, like how we see clouds that look like animals or knots of wood that look like faces. Sometimes, I think I have an overactive sense of pareidolia. For example, years ago, when I got bangs cut for the first time, I started seeing shadow people. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize the shadow people was hair falling into my eyes, that my brain was interpreting as some sort of demon or spirit. So I didn't give the upside-down woman much thought until I saw her again. I was on the subway into work. Lights caught my eye out the window as another subway passed us in the opposite direction. I looked up, and there she was. The silhouette of a woman hanging upside down in the passing subway car, pressed against the window, blurred by the speed of the train. I only saw her for a split second, and then she was gone as the train rattled past us. What the I must have just seen, like, a black jacket draped over a seat or something, right? My heart began to pound. I stared out the window for the rest of my commute. But all the other passing subways were fine, filled with commuters staring at their phones. When I got out at the station, my legs were so weak I thought I might collapse. But I forced myself to work. I didn't see anything strange on the way back from work, either. When I got home, I tried to distract myself, binging the nastiest stuff on HBO and plowing through an entire bag of chips. Then, I finally went to sleep, only to wake up with a start at 3:03 a.m. I was covered in a film of cold sweat. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't remember any dream. Usually when I woke up like this, the vestiges of some nightmare were still in my head. This time, there was nothing. I rolled over, pulling the covers up to my chin, and closed my eyes. Wait, there was something in the darkness of my room that didn't look quite right. I opened my eyes and looked around the room, my heart hammering. The dark shapes of my nightstand, my bookshelves came into focus. Everything was where it should be, except for the light. It was too dark in here. I rolled back over towards my window and realized that the usual annoying light from the street lamp below was not shining through the curtains. I got out of bed slowly and made my way to the window. I pulled back the curtains. My knees buckled underneath me. She was hanging from the roof. Her feet were tied to the awning of the roof, right in front of my window. Her arms hung loosely from her shoulders. Her hair hung straight down, waving gently in the breeze. Actually, her entire body was waving gently in the breeze. I grabbed the curtains and pulled them shut. I ran over to the light. Then I tiptoed back to the window and peeked out a tiny slit between the curtains. No, she was gone. I saw the street lamp, the night sky, dotted with stars. The next morning, I tried to tell myself it was a dream. I'd had a few weird moments in my life, in the twilight between dreaming and wake. Sleep is a weird, hallucinogenic continuum, and who was to say I hadn't imagined the woman out my window? Deep down, I knew that wasn't true, but it was a pretty little lie. I made my way to work, shaken. I didn't look up at passing subway cars. I drank about 3 cups of coffee. Jeff, ever the charmer, told me I looked super tired, and Tina asked me if I was sick. I didn't tell them what happened. They wouldn't believe me. When I got home, I started searching online for what I'd seen. I found myself scouring urban legend forums and even old posts here on No Sleep, the kinds of places I only visited briefly when I saw the shadow people or when I was looking for a laugh. Now, I wasn't laughing. I was desperately searching for an answer to whatever this was. And then, finally, I found it. Someone claimed their friend had seen the upside-down woman and had died 4 days later. Stay away from windows, they warned. It can only manifest in windows. They also remarked that their friend had at first seen the woman through 2 layers of glass, like through a car window, into the window of a home, and then later through only 1 window, like it was getting closer. Some science person had replied, asking all kinds of ridiculous questions, like if plastic counts or any transparent material, and they replied, there has to be a pane of glass or glass-like material in front of the person. They did not explain glass-like any further. There was no way to avoid windows unless I lived in the basement, so I moved food, water, and clothing down there while half closing my eyes. I told my boss I was sick. Oh yeah, Tina told me you looked sick. It took me a long time, but then I was settled in. For how long, I didn't know. I didn't know if it was even possible to wait out the upside-down woman. and I didn't even know if I actually believed in her existence in the first place. That was about to change. I decided to get some reading done to get my mind off things. I grabbed my book and, without thinking, grabbed my reading glasses. As soon as I put them on, I screamed. She was hanging from the basement ceiling, hanging in the corner, a void of darkness, hair nearly trailing to the floor. And then, this time, she moved. In jerky, incredibly fast motions, she broke free from the ceiling and scrambled towards me. I ripped the glasses off my face, but not before pain exploded in my arm. When I looked down, there were 4 deep scratch marks on my forearm, dripping blood. That leaves me here. I am sitting in my basement, away from all windows and glass, on the 3rd day. According to the guy on the internet, his friend was killed the 4th day. I don't know what will happen after 4 days. If that means I've waited her out, and she'll move on to another target, or if she'll kill me anyway, glass or not. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, assume the worst.